righty. Well, welcome everyone to the May 22nd meeting of the New York State Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask our Executive Director, Jennifer Berlin, to declare that we have a quorum and to offer any other comments that are needed in order for us to proceed with this meeting.
Thank you, Chair Dade, and good morning. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in accordance with the provisions of the state's open meetings law and executive law section 94. The meeting room that we're using here at the New York State Conference Center at 25 Beaver Street in Manhattan is open to the public during open session, as is the conference room at the Commission's offices in Albany at 540 Broadway. Public session is also being live streamed, and let me add that Commissioner Edwards is attending today's meeting remotely by video conference pursuant to section 103-A of the Public Officers Law and in accordance with the Commission's procedures for member video conferencing pursuant to that section. And I can state that there is a quorum present here in the New York State Conference Center in Manhattan.
Great, thank you. We'll now have the approval of the minutes from the April 17th public session. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Second, Commissioner Ayers and Vice Chair Austin. Are there any suggested revisions to those minutes or corrections? Hearing none.
We just had one, there's going to be a slight correction to the minutes. We had inadvertently left off a staff member who was in attendance at last month's meeting, so we add Garrett. His name to the list of staffers.
Great. Anything else? Ready to vote? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't have a correction to the minutes, but I have a questions regarding follow-up. Is this the appropriate time to have that while it's in my memory?
Minutes, and then let's do follow-up in new or other business.
Okay.
Make a note for it. All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and it's approved.
Thank you. As previously, the operations update includes, in addition to relevant activity figures for the most recent month, which is April of 2024, column 1, it also includes comparisons to the prior month, March 2024, column 2, and the comparable monthly and year-to-date periods in 2023, columns 3 and 5. That's January through April of 2023, and the current year-to-date is column 4. Call Commission's attention to page 1 of the operations report. The Commission received a total of 17 tips, complaints, and referrals. Commissioners received notice of those in their weekly notifications. Total of 15 matters were closed, 2 carried over from the prior agency, and 13 COLA matters. Pending and open investigations were 144 and 46 respectively, which is a net change of 3 additional matters. And 1 new investigation was opened, and you received notice of that as well in the weekly notifications. And with that, let me turn it over to our Director of Investigations and Enforcement, Brian Weinberg. Brian?
Good morning. Just to add that you'll see while the number of 15-day letters sent went down, we're still focusing on our current matters, trying to move those out. Although, as we'll discuss later on in executive session, we are attempting to move matters towards hearing, and also the group has been focusing on an older matter, which is still on the hearing track in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. We turn the Commission's attention to page 2 of the operations report. Ethics. We'll see that there were 5 requests for guidance in April, slightly down from last month's March's record of 117. guidance matters coming into the agency. Turn it over to Michael Sander, Director of Ethics. Michael?
Yes, April was another remarkable month for the guidance unit. The total for the month was almost twice the total from April of last year. Again, I don't really have, an explanation for the increased numbers, but I think that our increased outreach and increased training does explain at least some of it. And I think normal cyclical changes also explain a great deal as well.
Questions? Comments?
Thank you. Next, page 3, lobbying, small monthly increase in the number of registered lobbyists and clients, 6 and 93 respectively, in April over March. A much larger annual change in the total figures, again, as a result of the fact that we're in the second year of a biennial cycle. So the numbers will continue increasing at the end of the year, and then in the beginning of 2025, a new biennial cycle will begin, and we'll step the clock over. There was a decline in inquiries in this period of time. It may reflect the fact that there were no, in April, bi-monthly or semi-annual filing deadlines in place. In May, there were such deadlines, and the numbers are going to tick up, and have ticked up substantially. Let me turn it over to Carol Quinn. Carol?
Good morning. So the monthly operations report, you'll see there's 3 new added stats we're taking, which I think will better reflect the actual workload of the lobbying group. We've added the number of submitted registration amendments, bi-monthly reports and amendments, and client semi-annual reports and amendments. That will better reflect just generally the workflow. For example, last year in 2023, we reviewed over 62,000 filings. So this will show that. The only thing I will point out that I noticed for this month that might be interesting to the commissioners is that you'll see in the registration column, we received 1,243 registrations in March, and it dropped down to 585 in April. That's likely due to the budget negotiations. That's very typical. Lobbyists or clients will register, clients will hire lobbyists to do the budget. The other thing I can point out is the bi-monthly reports, which Sandy alluded to. Last month was a bi-monthly deadline, so we had a lot, 6,407 submitted with only 401 this month. And then in April, and then this month with the May 15th deadline that just passed, you'll see at the next meeting, you'll see an uptick, and that's very typical with the bi-monthly reports.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Financial disclosure statements. You can see that in April, there was a substantial increase in the number of filings over March. It's really 10,000 from just under 300. And that the April figure represents the deadline for non-academic filers to get their filings in by May 15th. So that surge began then. You'll see an even larger uptick in that month's report. The statistics. And there, you'll also see that I don't want to take Melinda Funk's thunder away from her, but you'll see that the outstanding filings, late filings from the prior year, are now down to 0. That represents huge effort, huge successful effort. It's RFDS. And that, I'll turn it over to Melinda to add some more detail and explanation.
Good morning, Commissioners. I wanted to update you that as of today, we have received over 22,000 filings. Staff is still processing paper filings that have come in, so that number will go up with what we've received. Currently, we are looking at right around 4,500 delinquent filers that may be receiving FILDA files beginning in June. And I wanted to also note that on the report, the notices of delinquency that I issued on the 2022 filing with the number of 190, we are down to 39 that still have not complied with the filing.
Questions, comments, Commissioner James?
How many of these are still paper filings?
How many are still paper filings that we have to process?
How many are paper filings in general of the total number
Versus electronic.
versus electronic, right?
I approximate anywhere between 1,000 and 1,200. And that would include both academic and non-academics. I have more academic filers that file paper. So I'm probably looking at right now maybe 800 paper filings for this non-academic filing season. It's a very small number.
Out of the 34,000, 35,000 for the entire year, the academics are due in November. The number of paper filings is what, 2 to 3%, Melinda, something in that range?
Yes.
Nice, it's good to see that the electronic filing is actually working. It's great.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just want to comment on how easy it is to do the electronic
Yeah,
filing
it is.
and what a treat it was to find that out.
Well, you know, the big advantage, I feel, that you get from electronic filing, in addition to the fact that you don't have to mail the thing and make hard copies, is your prior filing
Yeah.
is preserved. It's really a question of updating. You don't get the benefit.
Yeah,
With paper. It makes a big difference.
it really does. And
All right, anything else? Comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Training, page 5. As before, we're continuing to report separately live trainings conducted by our agency as well as those conducted by the nearly 400 agencies in the executive branch that work with us in training nearly 300,000 individual officers and employees, state government. You will see that the numbers are continuing to increase. As before, there's been a fall off to some extent in those using the on-demand application, which was only rolled out last November. On the other hand, the number of live trainings has gone up. It was very positive. Bear in mind that once we're fully underway with a 2-year cycle, every employee will be required to take alternating live and on-demand training, on-demand refresher training. What are the other every year? Statistics show, and we'll get into more detail later in the agenda when we talk about the report that we filed with the governor and the legislative leadership. You'll see that we're well on our way. It's going to require a concerted effort to meeting the target of having every state employee in the executive branch have at least one training, whether on demand or live, by the end of this year. 2 trainings, full cycle live and on demand by the end of by the end of 2025. Continues to be ambitious, but you'll see that those numbers that we're accruing, that the group is accruing, and that ethics officers around the state are accruing, at least puts us on track to achieving the commission's goal by the end of 2020.
Comments, questions? All right.
So let me, Melinda, Megan, anything to add at this time? Before we get into the report, we'll do that separately.
Sure, I'll just give a quick update on the MOR. So our numbers did increase since the original pulling of the data for the MOR. So for April statewide, there was 448 live CET sessions conducted statewide. The number of employees that received live CETC training went up to 6,554. And the combined figure for April of individuals, employees that either received live training or on-demand online training went up to over 14,158. Our first quarter stats are are pretty impressive. We have over 40,763 employees who have taken a form of training, whether online or live, for Q1. And since inception of the training requirement, we have over 171,000 folks who have completed training. So pretty impressive so far.
Yeah, we'll go into the details of the report, which I agree are extremely impressive. And that's Marlena Diaz, who's our Deputy Director of Learning Innovation Administration. Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Any questions?
All right, other than reviews.
Page 6, audit and review. It's the normal cyclical pattern. Reviews in April. There were 27 targeted FDS reviews that were completed. Targeted meaning they were called for by statute and by our procedures. Rather than random reviews, which are selected in a random process. There were 52 random lobbying filing audits completed in April. And let me ask Gareth Parent, our Deputy Director for Audit and Review. Gareth, anything to add to that? You may be muted, Gareth.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
And we can't now. You're gone again.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry about that. So as you can see, our numbers from last month to this month is essentially flat for lobbying audits. And I just want to say this is so the numbers from last year, last month to this year, this month. Last year was 606. We're down to 52 now. This is in the middle of us implementing a new audit software. So currently we're in the middle of implementing what they call Teammate Plus, which is essentially an updated version of the audit software that we've been using. And so that has taken away a lot of time from us in the audit unit actually having time to work on audits fully, because this implementation is, it's probably, we have 3 or 4 meetings a day, usually 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours each meeting. And so, but we're looking to augment this audit software to, in addition to do our lobbying audits, we're also building a framework to do our FDS audits in that software. So in FDS, we haven't done using the Teammate software before. So it's a totally new framework we're building out, so that's taking even more time. And so we're looking to essentially move all our processes. So we do FDS audits, we do lobbying audits. I'm also looking to move our internal control that Kyle is involved with by using that software. We also do campaign contribution reviews that commissions might not know about, but that's some type of reviews that we do too. So we're looking to augment the software, and so we're building that from scratch. So that's taking a great deal of time. But, we're still plugging away. And as you can see on the FDS side, we've increased the number of targeted reviews we've done from last month to this month by 19. So even though we're involved in implementing the software, which is taking a great deal of time, we're still, so we're multitasking pretty well, and we're plugging away, and we're pushing through. But at the end of the day, once we get the software implemented and all the framework built out, we're going to be a lot more efficient across the board in lobbying and in FDS.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead. Derek, are you done?
Yes. Thank you.
Let me add one thing. Gareth is being honest. In addition to this implementation of the updated software, audit software that we use, which is part of our overall initiative to upgrade. our IT backbone across the agency, across every aspect of the operation. Gareth has been operating shorthanded for some time now. We're actively recruiting for another auditor. I'll talk about that in a little bit greater detail. But what the group is doing is quite impressive. 438 clear targeted reviews in year to date is an impressive figure, particularly considering the staffing level in the group and the fact that any new software implementation tends to be a real drain on sources. So thank you, Gareth.
Commissioner Grunwood.
I heard Garrett mention something about campaign contribution reviews. Can you just explain what he was referring to?
Gareth?
Yes, so we have a process in the FDS unit where we do campaign contribution reviews for essentially commissioners who I think there's a provision about not contributing to people running for statewide public offices. So we do a review. I think it's every 6 months, and especially in the election cycle. And it is essentially a public database search in the campaign contribution databases across the state of New York, just to make sure folks are not unintentionally contributing to statewide public officer candidates during the election cycle or during any time. So certain folks are prohibited who have certain roles. And so we just want to make sure no one is unintentionally. Most of the time we've seen it, and we've seen it maybe once or twice. It was unintentional. So we research that information, and then we make sure management is aware of it, and then they handle it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand this is a continuation of a practice from predecessor agencies to fulfill our requirement that there not be contributions by commissioners to candidates for statewide office or for the legislature.
Other comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you. To page 7, Public Information Office. You can see we're kind of at a steady state. The number of FOIL requests, steady state is a fairly high level. We're considering that having FOIL obligations is something new for state ethics agency in New York. And I will turn it over to Emily DeSantis, who heads the group.
Good morning. You'll see, we've been kind of steady now, but we have seen an uptick this month with the FDS filing deadlines. We've been getting more and more requests for FDSs for that. And then just from my area, not related with FOIL, Cindy, is this when you wanted me to give an update on the survey?
No, we'll do that separately.
Okay.
Talk about the update just a minute.
All right. Questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. Budget update.
C.
As I said, since the last meeting, the budget has been approved. We received the appropriation that we had been expecting from the governor's proposed budget. We had a small increase, something above what we actually had asked for to cover anticipated mandatory step increases and the like, which have in fact already begun to be paid out in the coming months. But what we are doing to stay within that budget while implementing our expanded staffing plan is filling positions as needed. And staging the increases in staffing through the year so that we will be able to remain within budget for the year. And the same thing on the non-personal services side of the budget. It does mean that as we fill out the staffing plan, we'll be looking at needing a higher budget allocation for the next fiscal year, for 2025, 2026. I mean, assuming we were able to bring it all
Hold on, just 1 minute. It looks like the live from New York is now off. We
It
start
went
the,
out. It went out, but you're back on.
okay, sorry.
Right. I don't know where we dropped. But we will be able to live within budget this year. And frankly, it takes a while to recruit. We are looking at a number of aspects of our recruiting plan. One thing we already, as I said, we're recruiting for another auditor for Garrett's group. We will also be creating, this is a departure from the existing staffing plan, but we're making other adjustments to account for it. We will create a section of an assistant director in the audited review unit. And that's supplemented by filling the vacancy there will increase Garrett's current capacity in not a huge way, but sufficiently so that the number of audits his group is conducting can increase from roughly 800 to, we'll target 1,000. We'll see if we can achieve that. But it's something that Garrett has wanted to do for a while, and it makes a lot of sense to add that position. We'll also be filling a vacancy in the, on the other side of his operation in the FDS review. So filling the vacancy there. We'll be moving one of his people into Linda's group as a deputy, as an assistant director in that group, which will increase Melinda's capability. That's a vacancy that we're filling, so it's not a new position. And as I've said previously, we're actively recruiting. The submission period and posting period is now concluded for deputy director of administration. And we received, I think, nearly 30, maybe 30 resumes. And Mariana Cadiz, our director of administration, is working through those, and we'll be beginning the interview process imminently. So we're moving forward on that. Any questions on the budget?
Commissioner James.
The second page, with a projected surplus of $135,134 and total spending of $7,731,000. I thought the appropriation go based on.
So what was the appropriations?
The appropriation is $8,066,000. There's a difference between cash and appropriation. And the cash figure is the figure we're working with. We do have an increase in cash on the non-personal services side, less of an increase on the personal services side. But that's what that deviation.
So,
Can you?
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't understand. So what is the non-cash appropriation?
The non-cash appropriation, that's the stated amount of the appropriation from in the governor's budget, but the cash that's available to us is a lesser figure. And I'll leave it to Mariana to explain why the deviation is the size it is this year. I know she's been working with budget to try to narrow the gap. Mariana?
Good morning, Commissioners. From what I've understood and communicated with Division of the Budget, our cash is almost, I think, like 500,000 less than our appropriation, and that's there to provide for emergency funds that may be needed. So if, in essence, if we were allotted our entire budget and then run into an issue with exceeding that budget and needing emergency funds, then that involves a huge process, budgetary wise. But this cushion of the cash, that's why it's less than our appropriation. so that we have that cushion in case we exceed our cash, the approach is there for us to ask for the funds.
Is that common practice across all agencies or something that's particular to this? Common practice
It is
across
across
all?
all. It's across all agencies. It depends on their needs, but it is across all agencies.
Thank you. Learn something new every year.
It's a little bit of an eye opener when you think you have a budget. But I think it also protects the state if there are unevenness in the revenues coming in. But we will hopefully be able to fill out the staffing plan with those modifications. It's not easy to recruit, say at certain levels. As I said at the last meeting, we're also looking at regrading some of the positions that we're having difficulty filling at this time. Some of the lower grade positions are not as competitive from a salary perspective as we would like them to be. And the solution may be, we're looking at to regrade those positions to a higher level, to a higher pay grade, so that we can achieve those targets.
Anything else on this, on the budget? All right, we're going to go to the administrative review. Per diem.
We're talking about per diems. There are per diems that were scheduled, I think, to be, are we still on schedule for today, Mariana?
Yes, per diems should have been paid out today.
We have actual payouts to attach to the materials as soon as we have confirmation of that. So we'll post them, read the amounts into the record. The total is just a bit under $16,000, and it covers the October 10, 2023 meeting of the Legislative Working Group, February 21st Commission meeting, the February 28th Special Commission meeting, the March 15th Special Commission meeting, and the March 20 Full Commission meeting. And the figures are as follows. Chair Davey, $2,236.69. Vice Chair Austin, $1,310.90. That's 1310.06. Commissioner Ayers, $1,981.07. Commissioner Caraballo, $2,013.02. Commissioner Cardozo, $2,268.64. Commissioner Edwards, $2,013.02. Commissioner Groenwagen, $2,013.01. I'm not sure where the penny went. Commissioner James, $2,140.83. And the total is $15,976.34.
And that covers what?
And that covers, it doesn't cover preparation time, but it's meetings in October 2023, 2 meetings in February of 2024, and 2 meetings in March of 2024.
Any questions or comments on per diems? Right. Now to the administrative review.
Yes, the executive law review. Profits update. This is just an update. At March meeting, the commission approved a project, a program to complete the commission's obligation under section 94(1)D of the executive law to review the commission statutes, regulations, advisory opinions, for consistency internally, for effectiveness, compliance with the objectives and the letter backdrop. The initial approach was to be, it will be, survey-based, looking at our various constituencies, interest groups, stakeholders, academics, bar associations, other interested parties, their input, guidance on what they believe works, what doesn't work, those sorts of things, creating issues for them, what improvements are possible. And in fact, working with the executive team, it's put together some preliminary surveys that we're still refining. At the last meeting, it was agreed that in addition, parallel track, there would be a review of the advisory opinions. There are over 350 on the ethics side. There are a body of lobbying opinions as well. Most of them have been subsumed in regulations, but there are a few that have not been. And proposal, I think there was a consensus in favor of it, is that Michael Sand, Director of Ethics, along with Carol Quinn, Director of Lobbying, would present effectively a masterclass for commissioners, focusing on the seminal advisory opinions, which would provide everybody with a really solid grounding on how the advisory opinions have evolved and where they come out now. And it's an essential process in understanding how the statutes in particular, and some of the case law, has been incorporated into the operations of the commission over time. That's on track. That's on track for July. Michael is working on that. On the survey side, Commissioner Ayers was kind enough to put us in touch with a group at the University of Albany. It's the Center for Human Services Research. Has an expertise in instructing and conducting and supervising surveys and analyzing results. Emily and I had a conversation with them. They've given us a proposal, somewhat technical. We need to work with them a little bit. We're evaluating it, share it with commissioners, and we have a better understanding. But I'm going to turn it over to Emily now to provide more texture on the survey side of things. Emily?
Hi, sure. So we've drafted two very preliminary surveys, one for the ethics community, one for the lobbying community. And realizing that, nobody on staff quite has the expertise in survey development, we identified the need to find some experts in this area to help us. So you all will have a chance to see the preliminary drafts with the caveat that they could change greatly based on once we get our experts on board and they took a look at the survey. We're hoping that once we get experts on board, they can help refine the surveys before they go out. We would handle distribution. We have all those lists pretty much ready to go. And then when we get the results in, our experts would help analyzing the results.
Questions or comments? Anyone? Thank you.
And we will keep commissioners informed as we move ahead. But we feel we're on track to have both of these tracks culminate in a hearing, which will also incorporate our annual public hearing in late fall or early winter. So we feel we're quite on schedule. We'll see what kind of results we get back from the survey, but once we propagate it, we've been cautioned to be conservative in our expectations on survey responses. We're hoping for a really robust response, and something in the 1% to 3% range is what we're being told, which means among other things, we're going to be pushing more survey out to a larger group initially. We thought we could be selective. That does eliminate the problem of how do you select your target audience. It's literally going to have to be everyone to get a decent response back. But looking forward to it. It's going to be an interesting project.
Can I give one added update, Sandy? You just reminded me. One good thing that the folks that we met with told us, is that they think we can probably do a blend of a qualitative and quantitative survey in one survey rather than having to go out twice. So that's why we'll be able to also send it out to a larger group to hopefully get that greater response back than if we had, sent it to like a subset of the group.
Commissioner
And that
Carwin.
also gives us a little more timeline.
I was just wondering, so this is on education and training?
No. This is the comprehensive review that the statute.
Oh, of this 941, I'm sorry, I lost track. I apologize. Thank you.
Just in terms of scheduling the public hearing, I was just curious about when you hope to have that scheduled. I know we've been talking about trying to push it as early in the fall as possible to accommodate the legislative calendar.
Yeah, as we discussed at I believe it was the last commission meeting, we're still on track for that October meeting, public hearing, so that we'll have the results of the surveys back. The researchers did anticipate this taking, from getting it out to getting it back 3 to 4 months. So that'll allow us time to digest it, get the results out, and plan for the public hearing. So we're still on track for that October public hearing, as we've been talking about since we first started talking about the comprehensive review survey.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cardozo.
Who has been notified of the good government groups and knows at that level that we're gonna have this meeting in October? Are we subject?
I spoke.
Are we subject to criticism that we haven't scheduled it yet?
Yeah, so I spoke with reInvent Albany, and they actually indicated that that time of year would be preferable to them because there's less going on in the legislature. And I asked her to there's a group of good government groups that she meets with, that reInvent Albany meets with on a regular basis. And I asked her to parlay that information, and I believe she did. So they're all aware that it'll be coming in October.
reInvent Albany, who might also be interested, as I recall, last year, we had some additional people testify. So there's some way to let them know so we don't get criticized that we haven't scheduled it yet.
Sure, I could send out an email to folks who came last year and just let them know that we're looking to hold something probably in October.
I think we should do that.
Anything else? All right, introduce legislation under tab D.
Let me just say by way of introduction that a number of us staff had met with several members of the legislature as well as with representatives of the executive chamber and division of budget to discuss our legislative, the commission's approved legislative agenda. We are now at the point where 4 of our proposals have materialized as legislative, as introduced items of legislation as bills in the Senate and or Assembly. So we consider that to be a huge success. That includes proposed revisions to the open meetings law, e-filing for lobbying filings, e-filing for financial disclosure statements, as well as late fees for ethics by lobbyists and clients. So those 4 of our 8 proposals have actually manifested in a palatable way and are out there now in the legislature, whether in committee or on calendar. Whether they'll reach floor vote, we'll see.
Yeah.
So we're following that up. And Emily can add more detail.
Emily.
Sure. So the proposal for requiring electronic filing of financial disclosures was introduced by Senator Skoufis, and that's in the Ethics and Internal Governance Committee in the Senate. And actually just this past week, Assembly Member Catalina Cruz also introduced that as the same as bills in the Assembly. And so that's in the Government Operations Committee now. So that's introduced in both bodies. So that's good news. Proposal 8, which was had to do with changing the physical access requirement for advisory committees and subcommittees. That was actually approved by the Senate Investigation and Government Operations Committee. So that's one that could be on calendar. Proposal 9, which was requiring electronic submission of all lobbying filings. In the Senate, Senator Skoufis introduced that, and that was referred to the Ethics and Internal Governments Committee. And earlier this month, Assemblymember McDonald introduced the same as bill in the Assembly, and that was referred to the Government Operations Committee. So that bill is also introduced in both houses. And then finally, Senator Breslin introduced Proposal 3, which was the training noncompliance penalties for lobbyists and clients, and that was approved by the Ethics and Internal Governments Committee, so that one could be on calendar as well.
So what do we think the prospect is for any of these to be approved this legislative session by the full assembly?
Given that,
They're excellent pieces of legislation, and if we haven't taken it, it should be adopted. The governor's been signing them.
So we have a few folks who want to talk. Vice Chair Austin.
Do we lose opening?
Commissioner Cardozo. No, they're still up on my computer. Commissioner, are you there? Yeah, they're here. So Vice Chair Austin, Commissioner Cardozo, Commissioner James, Commissioner Bromley.
First of all, it's fabulous that we're getting movement on these bills. I think they're very important to our operations and makes life a lot easier. I am concerned, I was looking at Senator, I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce it, Skoufis's Bill 9010. In line 9, the idea, I'm sorry, line 8. The idea is for the public to have an opportunity to, and the word is attend. Does that mean physically or virtual? Virtually. And should it say it?
I'm pretty sure that's virtually, that's the intent of the bill, right?
Yes.
No, that just says they have to have at least one physical location where they can.
correct, so we would open like the Albany office and folks could come in and watch the committee meeting here if they so chose.
And for bodies that allow the public to speak, testify, they would be able to go to a location such as that.
And if we wanted to, we could, I mean, it doesn't prohibit us from putting the office if we wanted to, but at least one office would be for the public.
Correct.
When does that?
That's your question.
Yes, I would prefer the statute to specifically say virtual is available as an option for us also. But
well, I think that's the intent of the statute is to make the meetings virtual, but also have.
No, this says the members can all be virtual, but we have to have one physical location.
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's for the public to attend. That's what the language is in the statute.
For the public to attend in at least one physical location.
Right.
So I think Commissioner Cardozo and then Commissioner James, is that the way we had it? Or?
I had asked previously whether, particularly with respect to the open meetings law 9010 and proposal, whether we as individual commissioners, or at least some of us, should reach out to the legislatures. I continue to believe that, assuming it's appropriate, that some of us have some relations with senators or assemblymen, and that we, for example, Fran as the chair, could make a plea to Liz Fine as the general counsel to the governor, or even to some senators or assemblymen on the relevant committees. I think it would be effective. We were going to raise this earlier, and because of the Cuomo case and others, we didn't have time. So it may not be realistic, but I continue to believe that it would be useful to do that. In all due respect to staff, I'm sure they made the best submission, but I think hearing from us individually would be helpful. This is a critical issue for us personally because we're frustrated by the open meetings law as it's today. So I wonder if we've made any progress in that regard.
So we had a discussion about this, and I'll remind us also that we're in public session, but we had a discussion about this, and we concluded that given the level of oversight this commission has vis-a-vis the legislature, we should tread carefully in terms of how we engage them around specific pieces of legislation, particularly as commissioners. And I think the conclusion was that we would leave it in staff's hands to do most of this work unless there was some compelling reason to do otherwise. I don't think, however, it's unreasonable for us to talk to the governor's office about supporting this legislation. And I'd like to see us have that conversation, get some opinions from our attorney, general counsel, perhaps in executive session on that idea. But in terms of engaging the legislature, I think we can conclude it right now. It should be left in the staff's hands. And if there's some extraordinary reason for us as commissioners to engage, then we. Is that? Yes. Yeah. You know, we can talk more about it with legal counsel in terms of the governor's office that exists. Commissioner James.
With respect to the President bill, the memorandum of support spoke about $25, but it doesn't say $25 per day as indicated in the statute.
Right, say that one more again.
The memorandum of support does not say $25 per day. It just said $25. That's big. So I think.
It doesn't like the 11th first one.
Emily, did you hear that?
Yeah, just so you're aware, the memos are from the senator's office. So they're put out by the sponsoring senator, but the fact that it's in the legislation, I think, is the more important place for it to be if it was only in one place, but
suggesting that we speak to them and let them know that they made a mistake.
Well, let me sort of correct the record. In large measure, the sponsors memos that you see were drafted by commission staff. And the legislators' offices were kind enough to essentially adopt our drafting of those memos. So your comment is noted, and should the bill get reintroduced next year, we'll certainly make that correction or revision to the sponsors memo. But as Emily points out, it's not unusual for memos in support to be less than as explicit as the actual statutory change is set forth in the bill language. But we'll reconcile that going forward.
Commissioner Groenewegen.
I had a question about the memo of support on 9011, the purpose section where it's talking about the purpose of the electronic filing of the financial disclosure statements. The purpose section ends saying that will make the data contained in those statements electronically readable and searchable by members of the public. And I thought the FDSs weren't public unless there was a FOIL request. So I'm just perplexed by how electronic filing will alter the public's access to these documents unless and until the public makes a FOIL request.
FDSs that are submitted by legislators. Overstated.
do you want me to go ahead, Keith?
I'm sorry?
So
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. I'm sorry.
And then Emily, go ahead.
Yeah, what I was suggesting was that the purpose as stated in the sponsor memo reflects the reality that for the legislative members who submit FDSs by paper rather than electronically, there's a disadvantage in the public being able to sort through and search those paper filings, as opposed to it being much easier to do if legislators' FDS statements were filed electronically, just as most of the rest of executive branch submits their FDSs electronically. So the purpose of the bill is to make FDSs in general more easily searchable and readable, because electronic filing is so much faster in that regard than paper filings, which cannot be manipulated once they're scanned up.
I understand that. I'm more asking a question about, I thought an FDS, once it's filed, your average employee, once your FDS is filed, I thought it was searchable and readable, most importantly, by members of the public, only if there was a FOIL. And that's my concern, that unless I'm wrong, and they could be, but unless that's been changed, I just think there are public employees out there who could see this language and question that that wasn't the intent, to make greater non-FOIL required access to the documents. You follow me? That's
that was absolutely not the intention of the proposal. Proposal is, as Keith said, that is, Emily can explain in even greater detail, to facilitate the ability to post.
Right.
Post, which
it's just that concern. I guess I'm thinking of my former fellow colleagues who, file these documents annually with the expectation that they're not public documents. Well, they're FOILable, but you still have to make a FOIL request. And this
statute is not intended.
That's my only concern.
Yeah, it is not intended to alter in the language of the statute itself.
I went back to read the statute to make sure that we hadn't altered that. Again, I just think that could be troubling to some.
Emily?
No, I just concur with everything Sandy and Keith said. The way the statute actually reads, it does not say that FDS filings will be available like online to the public. Logistically, we couldn't even do that. But if a FOIL request came in, and for the ones we post for the statewide elected officials and the members of the legislature, those would be posted and they would be electronically, which would make them a lot more legible. Some of them, it's really tough to read what it is when it's handwritten. So it would still be, you'd have to file a FOIL request for the ones that are not posted online. So for ones who are not members of the legislature or the 4 statewide elected officials, and that they would be electronic, so they would be legible when they're provided.
I think what we're saying here, as in the other case, that these memoranda are not as precise as the language. It's the language of the actual legislation. Good. All right.
I did want to add, there are a couple of bills that didn't take with us that we were asked to comment on at a very high level. One of the bills is a reprise of a proposal last year for confirmation law to be incorporated into the law. So money spent advocating for or against confirmation of public officials whose appointment requires confirmation by the Senate would be under the proposed legislation. Would be subject to the reporting requirements and registration requirements of the Lobbying Act. And the other proposal is one that would require lobbyists to report, among other things, political contributions in certain instances. And it would expand broadly the range of business interests that are required to be reported by lobbyists, including certain family members. And again, we were asked to comment. We were asked by within the budget to comment at a very high level on potential costs to us, and not all the policy implications of either piece of legislation. The first one, confirmation lobby, in contrast to last year's proposal, which the governor vetoed, is not being retrospective. So it's forward-looking.
So what did you say?
Yeah.
Well, we were just asked to comment on the range of costs to us. So with respect to confirmation lobbying, the question was whether we thought it's less than $1 million for us to implement the change. And with respect to the other piece, Carol, was it between $1 million and $10 million? The change on the second, it was quite a range.
Yes, between $1 million and $10 million is what they projected, and we agreed that it would be within that. It would certainly be nothing close to that much money, but yes, we agreed with their figures.
You said it would be less than $1 million?
No, we said your range is reasonable for the two pieces of this. But we weren't asked to drill down any further, and they weren't able, and understandably, they haven't done that kind of analysis to unpack how their estimates have been arrived at. But it is important for them to be taking into account added costs for us, because our budget is our budget. Our goal is to look for them, not only the appropriation, but the cash.
All right. Anything else on legislation? All right. Is there a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law 105 and Executive Law 4, subsection 11, to address matters concerning personnel, pending litigations, and investigative and enforcement matter, litigation, see what that is confidential pursuant to section 94 of the Executive Law.
Are we going to talk about training, it's client reporting?
That's next, in the public session when we reconvene. So it's been moved by Commissioner Oz, by Vice Chair Austin, to go into executive session. Is there a second? Commissioner James, second. All those in favor of adjourning to executive session, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We are now moving to executive session. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to this public session of the meeting of the New York State Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government. I'm going to ask our Executive Director, Sanford Berlin, to report out on our discussions in the executive session.
Thank you, Chair Davey. In executive session, the Commission discussed matters related to litigation and legal advice. The Commission approved a confidential disclosure pursuant to Executive Law, Section 9411B. The Commission approved 2 staff recommendations pursuant to Executive Law, Section 9410F, to advance matters from hearing or settlement. And the Commission authorized steps in several investigative matters, closed 4 public matters, and discussed several other investigations.
Thank you very much. Now, to return to our agenda for the public session, we'll now have a report on our 2023 annual statewide ethics and compliance report under tab E.
Commissioners will refer to the report. In particular, all their attention to page 3 was the report, which summarizes any statistics from inception of the agency in July of 2022 through April 29th, 2024. And we see that.
He's muffled. I can't hear him.
Can you speak a little louder?
I will try to speak louder. Can you hear me now?
Yes, what page are you on? I didn't hear that.
Page 3 of the it covers
Okay.
2023 as well as the last quarter of 2023 and the first quarter of this year. So it's a combined report. It has been submitted to the governor's office and to the legislative leadership. It complies with their obligation under the statute to make those reports. And you will see that in the period of time we've been, this commission has been in business. We have trained, or there have been trained under our supervision, over 200,000 state officers and employees. Over 170,000 of those live, over 35,000 have been trained on demand. And earlier, you were informed that updated statistics since that time, in the last couple of weeks since the report was issued, last 3 weeks since the report was issued, have raised those numbers even further. And what this shows is that through really Herculean efforts, not only of our training staff, but also the ethics officers and training personnel at the nearly 400 agencies in the executive branch. Through their efforts, we are on our way to meeting the commission's target of having at least one ethics training, comprehensive ethics training, whether live or on demand, by the entire workforce by the end of this year. And we'll make up the 2-year cycle that the statute calls for by the end of 2025. So it's huge progress. I should add that in addition to phase one of our systems projects working in conjunction with ITS, which allows agencies to report to us directly into the system, their aggregate monthly and quarterly statistics, training statistics. We are still on track to roll out phase two of the project, which will provide for scheduling, notification, and monitoring of training across the executive. There will be a ramp-up period as data is entered into the system. There's going to be a transition period from phase one to phase two in the reporting. We may see some bumps in the road as we roll out that larger system. But the core system, which is going to enable us to report and for agencies to know and for us to know at the individual employee level, the status of every individual, ultimately the status of every individual's training is on its way to realization. Again, it's not going to instantly do everything we wanted to do on June 13th, which is currently the target date. A good deal of data still has to be entered in. Our training staff are still working with the various agencies and with the folks who manage the statewide learning management system to get all the data in that we need. But we're on the way there. There are challenges. There are challenges in getting the MOUs done. There are going to be challenges in getting email addresses so we can directly reach out individually to all employees. But we're on our way to doing that. And that's going to facilitate the process. And without that, with the current almost manual system, I would say, that's being used, again, over 200,000 ratings have taken place. They're not all unique individuals. Some number of individuals, I should say, have had multiple trainings. We don't know the exact numbers. If you look through the agency by agency statistics, you'll see there are instances where more trainings show up than employees in agencies. And that's because we've been doing this now since 2022. Some people have trained more than once. But the progress is huge, and everybody who's participated in it really is deserving both of congratulations and thanks for the effort that's gone into it.
Right. Comments, questions?
I just had a couple of just definitional comments because on page 4, when we talk about the statewide agency information, there's terms I don't know that the total number of statewide agencies, and I know we consider everything an agency, but then we have the total number, then 2 lines down, we have the total number of statewide parent agencies. I don't know what a parent is. And then we have subsidiary agencies. I don't know what those terms mean, but I'm guessing parent agency might be something like SUNY is a parent agency and then all the individual campuses.
Well, that would be an example. Yes.
I've just never heard that terminology before.
Yes, it's part of the structure of the reporting system. Megan, Marlena, I say Marlena, yes.
So I would say a better example would be corrections, right? So you have corrections, which is the parent, and then you have all of the other facilities under corrections. And that's what we consider the subsidiary agencies.
Close to facilities, I got you. But you never get questions about that from the outside?
No, because generally, the folks that we're having the most back and forth conversations with fall in that category. So because we've been using this vernacular amongst ourselves and ethics officers and agency users, they have an understanding as to what we mean by that.
And then this report for the prior year, you know, to the extent it's the prior year total and then the little add-ons. We're only reporting on the live ethics training, right? Because it can look like some agencies have abysmal progress. And in fact, their entire workforces have been trained one way or another.
That's correct. And there is a supplemental schedule that Marlena and Megan have prepared that we're posting along with the report that separates and reports the on-demand as well as.
I see.
By agency, as well as the live trainings that have taken.
And that will go to the
Well, it's being posted. We can provide that in addition to the chamber and to the legislature.
Well, the only reason I asked that is obviously my first attention was drawn to the controller's office, and I was thinking that number can't be right. But then I started looking at the other agencies that look to not have complete compliance, at least. And some of these are ones that, you know, at the Division of State Police, you would hope, you know, they're all trained, given the nature of their work. So I just think it can lead to confusion among it.
No, we understand it. That's why the supplemental was prepared.
Okay.
And I think it's also important to note that not every state entity has access to the on-demand, right? So there may be certain entities like the SUNY campuses, the CUNY campuses that are not using our on-demand training because they don't have access to the statewide learning management system. And they are in the process of taking our materials and putting the on-demand within their own learning management system, or because of our outreach efforts, have opted to just continue to do live training for this calendar year. So not everyone will be taking the on-demand for one or two reasons. Either one, they don't have the ability yet to be able to host that within their learning management systems, or they don't have a learning management system. That's one. Or two, they've chosen to just continue to do live training.
I think those are important acknowledgements that those who are trying to understand just how complete the training effort is, and they might not appreciate the full magnitude.
Yeah, I mean, there are many challenges, many opportunities to figure a lot of things out. And Megan and Marlena and their team have invested a huge amount of time as ITS. In working with the varied systems that are out there, some of which readily speak with one another and with our systems, and others which require a lot of specialized programming.
No,
vehicles to get the information into this concentrated system.
It's very well done and perfect job. And just, as I said, it seems like there's even more that's been done out there that.
There's, yes, the document doesn't give justice to the amount of work that the team has done. To pull this together. And that's why I'm saying, you know, we're rolling out big thing next month. But it's not going to be full, you know, doing everything we want it to do for some period of time. But if you start, and again, the impressive thing is that without that system, even without the phase one system, the trainings are happening. Now we need to capture data. If we need to find out if the systems have training, we get everybody on track.
Thank you.
Comments, questions? All right. Hearing none, we want to thank the staff for all of their hard work on this particularly on the training of so many of the state's employees in a relatively short period of time. Thank you for this comprehensive report. And we should look for ways to promulgate it as far and as wide as we possibly can, or as far and as widely as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you.
The proposed commission meeting schedule, is that where we are? Yes, we are. F. Commissioner Vice Chair Austin.
I'd like to request that the October 23 date be changed to earlier that week or early the following week, previous week, excuse me. I will be away, and since that's going to be our meeting with the government groups, I certainly want to be there for that.
That'll be a separately scheduled meeting. That'll be a public hearing. Public meeting that's separately scheduled.
This is just the commission meeting schedule.
So could we do, excuse me, Vice Chair, having said that, could we then commit to doing that public meeting either before he leaves or once he's back?
If he sends me the dates, yes. That'll be away.
Thank you, family. I'm good.
Any other comments on these dates? Yes.
I have a problem in the middle of the day on the 24th.
July 24th.
July 24th, so do it following day or the day before.
Let's see.
I take over the 25th is also there.
Did I say that again?
The 25th is also there.
It's out.
Maybe the 23rd or the previous two. That might be too close to the early June meeting.
And I could do July 23rd. Commissioners, July. Go ahead.
23rd works for Commissioner Edwards. I think we're on Wednesdays because of her former teaching schedule or something.
Teaching.
Commissioner Edwards, would July 23rd work for you for a meeting instead of the 24th?
You're on mute.
Yes, it will. Okay. Good. Everybody else is okay with that? We'll check with Michael, but we'll plan, Commissioner Cardozo, but we'll plan on July 23rd for our meeting instead of the 24th.
I might ask to do the November 20th meeting from Pennsylvania.
Sure. And I may have to do the June meeting from New York instead of Albany. I'll see, because I will be coming back from a trip to California late on the night before the June meeting, which would be the 25th. So I may do the June 26th meeting from New York City.
And I will.
You're out.
Why is there a back-to-back meeting in New York between July and September?
We don't meet in the month of August.
No.
And I think there was an effort to continue the practice of meeting in Albany in December.
Oh, okay.
We can save a lot of money on hotels if we do it in Albany in December, I think.
Okay.
So
We didn't do that this year, December.
In Albany, it's just the meetings together. Yeah, we can.
Which might be a situation again.
So, Vice Chair, Austin is asking if we can move the October 23rd meeting to October 22nd. That way, this is early enough for me, and I think it'll be fine. The teaching, well, so, okay, we'll leave it where it is.
Leave it the where it is?
Yes. So the only change here now is July 23rd for the July meeting, and then September 18th, October 23rd, November 20th, December 18th. Motion to approve these meeting dates, Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Ayers. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion passes. What's next here? Is there any, Commissioner Edwards had some business coming out of the minutes that she wanted to discuss.
Okay. Okay, thank you. On page 9 of the minutes, there's discussion around the open meetings, the new legislation for the open meetings law, around the open meetings law. And if approved, it talks about the physical location. And it's part of the requirement would be that at least one location would be physical for, people to have access to the meeting. Could there be some criteria? Can we either alternate those sites from between New York and Albany and Schenectady? I think we have an office in Schenectady, right? Could we alternate between those 3 offices, or have staff come up with some criteria by which we select? I just want to give all people throughout the region equal access.
So I think if the legislation passes, we have the option of opening one office or all offices.
I understand. I'm only suggesting that when we exercise that, I'm not asking for the legislation to change. I'm just asking as a follow-up, should it be approved that there's a process in place to either select where the meetings would take place, or just agree to have them at alternate sites?
Right. So I would, since we don't have quorum, since Commissioner Harris stepped out of the room, I propose that that we have a motion, have a resolution next meeting that says it would be the preference of commission that we have at least 2, should that legislation pass, that we have at least 2 sites open for physical attendance, should people choose to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just clarify, it may not be clear here. Our proposal applies only to committees and subcommittees that are advisory bodies and that don't have decisional authority. So we're only talking about.
Yes. Sure.
I understand. Thank you.
Anything else in terms of new or other business?
Now, I have 2 other points I want to make. I want confirmation on page 11, Executive Law 941D, process timetable. There is a mention of a qualitative survey taking place, and it would have been developed this month. Is that pertaining to the discussion we had this morning, where Executive Director is working with Commissioner Ayers to hire experts to help us with the qualitative study?
Let me get that update. Yes.
Okay.
We have, as we mentioned this morning, we have identified with the help of Commissioner Ayers, an outside vendor who could help us. And they believe that we could do 1 survey rather than 2 and still reach the same end. So yes, that is true. And yes, that's the same survey.
Okay, thank you. And then the last point I want to make is on page 12. I just want to confirm that we are still going to on hold this whole notion of how we whole notion of committee, of the committee structure until the legal issue is satisfied?
Right, no, not necessarily. We're gonna have we talked about a special meeting sometime after July 4th, but before the actual scheduled July meeting.
Oh, we'll discuss it then. Okay.
We'll put it on the agenda.
Okay, all right. Those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? A motion to adjourn? Vice Chair Austin and seconded by Commissioner Carvalho. All those in favor of adjourning this meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Those ayes have it. Motion carried. This meeting is adjourned. Again, thanks to the staff for all of their continued hard work and commitment to seeing that the laws and regulations related to ethics and lobbying in New York are actually carried forth and implemented. Thanks to all of you, fellow commissioners, for all your work and dedication, and thanks to the public for continued interest. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.